Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to PSGL season finale for season 31. I've got our wonderful, amazing commentator, Dan Gilligan. Dan, how the heck are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well indeed, thank you, Punju. And we are going into our final round of the season, as you rightly say. We have a very interesting title decider ahead of us here, because if you were tuning in last week, then you'll know that the fight at the top, it was already quite close headed into that final second last round, I should say. And then because of all the desyncs in that final round, we ended up awarding half points. But as a result of all of that, it has meant that we go into a title decider with only 2 drivers in it and half a point separating them. Whoever finishes first between the 2 drivers, provided it is in the points, will take the title. Our 2 protagonists so far this season have been Fionn McKee, who has led the championship ever since the second round of the season, and Vincent Nyquist, who led the championship after that first round and has been steadily gathering pace to get back onto terms ever since. It has been an interesting up and down battle, with the drivers initially trading the 2 best positions, with first and second for Vincent and Fionn respectively in the first round of the season. Then a did not start for Vincent, one of 2 non-appearances for them, and then since then, and since those instances, it has allowed their teammate to go ahead and get the march on them in terms of the points, with the 6 points being awarded in round 2 for Fionn, which gave them that lead, which they've not relinquished since, and then 12 points for second place in round 7 as well, which is the other instance of that. But over the course of the whole season, Vincent has been, on average, the fastest driver. Most poles, most wins of anybody, and that despite the fact we've had the recent resurgence from Jeremy Glinner, who has been able to go ahead and take 4 out of the last 5 poles, and 2 out of the last 5 wins as well. It has been a good resurgence for the Red Bull driver, but unfortunately a bit too little too late for them.
That is insane. He's done how many poles did you say out of the last few races?
4 out of the last 5.
Oh my gosh. So I'm sure he's going to be the dark horse of the day today. Maybe go throw a little spice into the action.
Absolutely. Though that being said, I think our championship table here might be wrong, because I feel like they did get pole last time out. So I think it's been 5 pole positions in a row for Jeremy Glinner, actually, because it doesn't show anybody is getting pole position at the last round here on the table. And for whatever reason, that's the name in my head for who crossed the line first in Kota last time around. So I'm going to go ahead and say it. We can obviously get corrected in the in the comments if we're wrong. But 5 pole positions in a row for Jeremy Glinner, which I think makes him the most successful consecutive qualifier in PSGL this season. That might be wrong. I don't have every single table in front of me to double check that. But I think it's not a far shout.
It definitely does seem about to be accurate. I definitely know that F6 doesn't have that level of consistency of pole positions. We had some pretty fast guys down there, but nothing like that run of form. That's absurd. Even 4 out of 5 is still absolutely bonkers. Like that's a lot to be talked about. Do you think he's going to get any sort of promotion up to a higher tier next season?
I think if we based it purely off of the results from the second half of the season, so round 6 onwards, then undoubtedly, yes, they have been as fast, if not faster, on certain occasions than the 2 championship protagonists. But it was the first 5 rounds that may well have scuppered any promotion chances for them. To give you the rundown there, they had fastest lap in the first round, but no points. They then DNF'd. They then got no points. They then DNF'd again. Then they got no points. Then their first points scoring results, it was a win and pole position. And then it was the same the following round. And then third and pole position. And then a couple more point scores with pole position each time. So it has been late season resurgence for Jeremy, but you never know then. So there might be an opportunity for them there. But I think that the 2 McLaren drivers certainly will be disappearing off into a higher division, or higher divisions still than just the one into next season, because in terms of the constructors standings, it's been pretty much a McLaren guarantee for some time now. 120.5 points is the gap they have to Red Bull in second. That's the level of domination that McLaren have had this season so far. It has been almost as dominant as 1988, not quite as dominant. They've they've lost out on the win on only 3 occasions, though.
That's
so it's been pretty close.
Yeah,
Pretty
ironically enough,
close.
I actually have a poster of that 1988 season in my house because of how absolutely exceptional it was. It just helps me feel good as a McLaren fan to look back at the good old days, which obviously these days not necessarily the easiest to be a McLaren fan, but here in F5, it's very easy to be a McLaren fan.
It's very easy indeed to be a McLaren fan in this division. Also, I may have just lied to everybody. It's not 3 times they've lost the win. I think it's 5, because the way in which the constructor standing, of course, shows itself off is you get the gold color that we would usually associate on the driver's standings for a win if you scored the most points of any team that weekend. And whilst McLaren have done that on all but 3 occasions this season, looking back to the results, they have not been able to take quite that many number of wins. I'm just counting it now, but it is 5. So just about half.
Still.
If they win today, then that's going to be over half the races this season
That's
that have
absurd.
been won by a McLaren driver. So it's been a very, very good season for the boys and girls in Woking in the virtual world here in PCF 5.
And speaking of the virtual world, how about we take a look at the track that we're going to today? Where are we finishing this one off? We're finishing it at Silverstone, Great Britain's wonderful, most amazing, famous track. I got a couple fun facts for you about Silverstone. You ready for these, Dan?
Ooh, go on.
Ooh, okay.
Me.
So obviously, we all know that it's one of the 4 OG tracks from 1950 that's still on the calendar. You know what the other 3 are, right?
Oh, crikey, this is going to be a tricky one. I know Monza's definitely one of them.
Monza's one of them.
I'm gonna chance at Spa.
Yes, correct. And then there's one more, which is the most classic F1 track of all time.
Oh, crikey, this is going to make me look bad if I get this wrong. Let's go ahead and say
Yes.
Suzuka.
There's no shot. You actually don't know this one.
No.
It's Monaco.
Oh, of course. Well, I mean, that's not a Formula One track. That's a procession.
That is a good point. It is more of a go-kart track than actually is a Formula One track, but it is considered one of the 4 originals. Fun fact, though, Britain and Italy, the only 2 countries to have always hosted an F1 race since the beginning of time for Formula One. So, random fun fact. Obviously, 18 turns, 27 laps here today, 5.8 kilometers, otherwise known as 3.6 miles for me across the pond. This is going to be a heck of a fun time here in F5, I'm sure. And also, I do want to say thank you to our sponsors, GT Omega and Grid Rival. While we got a chance, they do amazing stuff for us here at PSGL, so we got to give them thanks. You ready to go get into the action?
Absolutely. So, down to the track we go then, and one of our championship contenders is already on the circuit. Fionn McKee on their outlap at the moment, and now have just been joined on the circuit by Vincent Nyquist, the other driver. So, we have everybody naturally out on soft tyres at this point, and they're all making their way around. It looks like Vincent is getting on with it at some speed. They have already started to catch up to where Fionn is at the moment. Fionn at the moment just going through Luffield and Woodcote, and now just behind them is Vincent. Vincent did come out a good, I want to say, 10 to 20 seconds behind them, but now they've closed that gap quite significantly. Of course, if you can run relatively quickly on your outlap in this year's game and with some confidence, then you can get that heat built up into the tyres nice and quickly, but does run the risk of potentially overstepping the mark and just ending up having a bit of a rough time, shall we say. Now, around Silverstone, this is a circuit which, in my experience, across various different leagues and skill levels and so on, doesn't really tend to produce fantastic league racing. Now, I'll explain what I mean there, because it's one of those circuits where you don't have particularly too many heavy braking zones. No hairpins or anything like that. Maybe the heaviest on the brakes you go would be into, say, Brooklands, but that's a corner in which you're turning and braking at the same time. It's not straight line braking.
I would say also Vale Chicane.
Yeah, that's potentially another one.
That's hard.
Where it's topical, given that Fionn's just gone through there and has now started their lap. So they're just a little bit further up the road than where Vincent is at the moment. So they'll head through now, down the Hamilton Straight, through Abbey and down towards Farm now. And then we've got the rest of the loop here as well. This newer, I think it's a bit too long and that it's been in this configuration now for us to call it the new first sector of Silverstone, but newer, certainly. Now onto the Wellington Straight. This then going to be one of those opportunities where we might see some passing through the help of DRS, but DRS trains not uncommon around here. Through Luffield we go now. This right-hander here, car tends to try and understeer through here. You'll see drivers taking 2 different schools of thought through there. It's either going to be trying to V off the corner or trying to take a more traditional racing line, hitting the apex at your slowest speed. Then through, of course, the famous Cops Corner, where the site of controversy last year with Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton coming to blows. Will we see the same between our title rivals here today? We will have to find out and see. Then, of course, Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel. This fantastic section of racetrack here, where if you ever happen to go to Silverstone in real life and you have to choose which day to view that particular set of corners, qualifying. Go there, see those cars on low fuel, see what a Formula One car can do. Through then, the final fast speed corner on the circuit there, that being Stowe, and then into this Vale chicane, slightly wide of the apex there for Fionn. But then as they head through the exit and through Club Corner here, the final corner on the circuit, it will be only second. And look at that, who's leading the way at the moment, if it isn't Jeremy Glinner with their 5 consecutive poles. And Vincent Nyquist crosses the line just a couple of hundredths quicker than their teammate.
That is very close. It's just almost shy of 200ths. That's insane. That is so close. That is exactly what I like to see already at the start of qualifying 2, because that means that obviously the gap between these two is so close. It makes sense why they're so close in the championship, but I'm hoping that does mean very close racing between these two.
Hopefully. I think it's interesting because we've seen over the course of the season that of the two, Vincent tends to be the stronger qualifier and stronger in the beginning of a race, but tends to be then that after the start is completed and that first stint is out of the way, Fionn then seems to be very good as the car gets lighter and more responsive and dealing with the tyre wear as well. So it's going to be a race of two halves, I think, in terms of where our competitive order might lie. And certainly, if the championship protagonists are getting out-qualified by the likes of Alexander Johansen and Norby, as we are seeing now, then it might be that we have a bit more of a spicy sort of a race coming up in the not-too-distant future. A couple more drivers yet to set some times so far. We've had Dmitry Minich out on circuit, and again, a driver who we thought was going to be a championship protagonist earlier on in the season, as they were one of the first to get a win that was not one of the McLaren drivers. In fact, just the second round of the season, they managed to win in Miami. But then, of course, since then, it's been a bit of a tail-off for them. Or really, not well, since then is perhaps a bit harsh. Since the fourth round of the season, they managed to go ahead and get just the 1 point in the first round, win in the second, third place then the 2 following rounds. But then it was a no-score in Japan. And since then, things have kind of unraveled for them as far as the championship challenge has been concerned. Haven't stood on the podium except for last time out, when, of course, it was this half-points race. So only 5 points available for their third place as opposed to the usual 10. And so, interestingly, because of the desyncs and the issues last time out, and therefore the awarding of half points, it actually means then that Fionn was able to retain the lead of the championship. Had full points been awarded, then we would have seen Vincent retaking the lead of the championship heading into this final round. So that's all to come in terms of what might come next. Now, driver that we're looking at the moment in that resplendent yellow and red Ferrari livery that is in the game for a limited time is Kinty. And Kinty, a driver who, for whatever reason, has not set a lap time just yet. I'm going to put that down likely to invalidations, but it confuses me as to why they're still on the circuit, because those tyres have now done an outlap and 2 timed laps, according to my graphic here. So that's not going to be setting any blistering lap times in the not-too-distant future. They're also likely to not have very much fuel on board. We can see from the off-board shots as well that their ERS light at the back of the car is blinking, so less than 10% available at this sort of middle to end stage of the lap here. So unlikely that they're going to be setting any lap time at the end of this lap. If they do, it's going to be a heavily compromised one and not reflective of their overall pace. So I would say it's going to be much more beneficial to them to get into the pits here as they go around Stowe Corner and then get themselves a new set of boots on, and that's exactly what they do.
Yep. You know what's interesting? You mentioned the light flashing. I always put my the telemetry stuff down at the bottom on, just so I can see what people have when it comes to ERS. But mine are all showing everybody has 100, so it looks like we might have a bit of a graphical glitch on my end. Oh, just kidding. There's Alex Berry with 65%. So it seems to be working for some people, but Kinty wasn't actually using any ERS on that last lap, so he was just chilling at 100. Very interesting, though. That he was blinking. I wonder what that may have been about.
So it could well be then that if the car is not deploying anything at all, then the light continues to flash because, of course, bearing in mind on their out laps and their in laps, drivers will often switch ERS off entirely in order to demonstrate that. Not demonstrate anything. Demonstrate is a completely wrong word. What am I saying? But they'll do so in order to conserve their battery, but not just that, but also the tires as well, crucially, of course. Whilst you are not forced to start on the tyres that you set your fastest lap time on, like the rules of old, which in my opinion has led to some more boring strategies, but hey-ho, there we are. It's now meant that, drivers have more flexibility in the race, but you've still got to use those soft tyres if you're going to go on to softs in the race itself. So conserve those tyres as best you can. It means you've got tyres in better condition to go more laps and have more performance in the race itself. Now, we're seeing a little bit of weaving from Norby there as they get ready to start another lap. Currently, though, we are on board with Alex Berry, who's been able to slot themselves up into P3 after setting their lap time, relatively speaking, quite late in the order.
Yeah.
And we've got then, as I say, Norby's now just coming around the final turn, but we've now got both McLarens on time laps once again. So Fionn in front of those two in terms of on circuit, not in terms of the times at the moment, and they've invalidated, so they are not going to improve this lap. So that then means that Vincent Nyquist is the driver we can keep an eye on, and through the first sector they are 1 1/4 tenths up on their previous best time. That would get them roundabout up into, ooh, not like that though, it wouldn't. Great big oversteer moment, and dear. Very good catch, and good not to end up binning it into the wall. That was very close on the right-hand side. But yeah, that's meaning that we're likely going to have lost an awful lot of time there. And you can see there that rear light is on. They're definitely not out of ERS, so they've switched off the system. Either going to go for another push lap in just a few moments' time, or more likely, I would imagine, we'll go into the pits, get a new set of boots on, and go once again. Because around this circuit, it's a bit difficult to try and do a second push lap. We do have the hardest compounds in the Pirelli range available around Silverstone, and they still get chewed through. We all think back to 2013, of course, when we had the tyre popping scandal, and then, of course, in more recent times as well. I forget which year it was. I want to say 2017. Ferrari ended up having both of their drivers popping their tyres over the course of their laps. Now, this is going to be inconvenient for Fionn here. They've elected not to go into the pits, but instead for a second push lap. But right in front of them here is an Alpha Tauri, that being of Elliott, who has set a time, but they are not getting out of the way. And this will be infuriating the McLaren driver. Not only that, but Elliott is invalidated as well. And now they finally get out of the way. But Fionn hasn't really driven past them at any significant speed here, so I don't think that Fionn is going to improve this time. Instead, all they've done is waste another set of tyres on this lap, and you can see there they let the AlphaTauri back through, so they've clearly backed off on this lap.
Yeah, I think I saw Fionn start slowing down as he was coming up close to the AlphaTauri. I really don't know what Elliott was inherently thinking. I mean, if you do look at their qualifying times, it is a literal whole second between the two of them. But also, I think Elliott just maybe wasn't really checking his mirrors and looking for that McLaren. As bright orange as it is, you still have to elect to look at your mirrors to see it. So, really unfortunate for Fionn. I know he'll get another chance to do it and chance to lap. Look at him, he's going to pass him into the pits. That's some quick revenge right there. You can tell that. Are we sure
this is Fionn driving and not Mr. Sebastian Vettel? That seemed a very Vettel-esque move there.
It did, didn't it?
As we head into the pit lane. But yeah, I mean, it's all about marginal gains, isn't it? It could be that just getting in front of the slower moving car there means that they can then get themselves out for that extra lap at the end of the session, which is now 6 minutes and 10 seconds away. So, to give you the rundown then so far, as you can see on your screen, we have Jeremy Glinner leading the way from Norby, and Jeremy improves their time, in fact, at the top of the timing sheets there, 1:26.589 for the Red Bull driver.
4 tenths
Then 4 tenths, yeah, well, near enough. It's closer to 3.
Yeah.
We are closer to 3 there in terms of that gap, so it's not the end of the world just yet as far as the chasing pack is concerned. But then, of course, we've also got track evolution to worry about as well, and how that will have improved his lap time. So it's certainly not over for the likes of Norby behind. But then after Norby, we've got Alexander Johansen currently on an outlap, so expect to see them maybe jump back towards the top end of the order again in a few moments' time. Then we've got Alex Berry. Oh, I say that. No, never mind. Alexander, as I say, is on an outlap, and I was just on board with them, and they invalidated their outlap. So it's not going to affect their time lap at all. Then we've got Alex Berry, who is on a time lap at the moment. You can see on screen currently. Then behind them, we've got Momentu, Ali Finn, Dimitri Minich, Vincent Nyquist, Fionn McKee, Jerry Van Bussel, JXN, Maceo, Elliott, Kinty, and Danny Cofield. So, The Alpine then of Alex Berry continues to circulate around the circuit. Circulate around the circuit? That's not a very good use of the English language, is it? But there we are. Through Woodcut Corner we go then. And currently, doesn't look like there's a great deal of deployment going on with that car. Have they abandoned this lap?
Yeah, it looks like he has. He was a little more than a tenth down on his lap when he had gone through the first sector marker. So I think he just went ahead and called it quitsies on this first one. He's going to maybe try again on the second push lap right after this. Yeah, he's like a whole second and a half down right now, so I doubt he's trying anything right here.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it, does it? So, recharge the batteries, maybe the a little bit of performance, but that being said, 4 minutes remaining in the session. There we go, into the pits. Finishing my sentence before I even said it. So yeah, plenty of time to get back in. And would be of benefit as well, of course, because as I say, track evolution, incredibly important in this year's game. And when we see then that improvement going on, it means then that getting your lap done as late as possible is ultimately what's going to end up getting you a huge amount of time. I've just been on board with Elliott, one of the only drivers on a lap apart from Alexander Johansen at the moment, and both AlphaTauri drivers have invalidated, so neither one will be setting a lap time anytime soon.
Now, the person I want to see, go improve. Obviously, it's those two McLarens. It's weird they're sitting in 8th and 9th place right now. But Maceo is who I'm looking at right now. He is out there. I think he's going to go for one more hot lap. Looks like he's warming his tires up. So I think this Mercedes has some extra pace in him. Let's see if he can get himself farther up the grid, or if he's going to be stuck outside the top 10 like he is right now.
Yeah, Maceo, a driver who's been very unlucky over the course of the season, has been fighting for good points at varying parts of the season, but ultimately it's only resulted in 2 points finishes for them, and a bit lower down in the order as well. So it's not been the greatest of seasons for them, one they might well want to forget, but it's something that they can pull a good result out towards the end of the season here in this final round of that, I'm sure. So through the first sector we go then. Up towards that timing split at the end of the Wellington Straight we will come, and where will they feature out versus their previous personal best? They are 2.5 tenths up. That is not bad at all. Gets them much closer towards the rest of the pack. They're about a second off of the ultimate pace at the moment, and the driver in front of them just shy of 7 tenths. A little bit of an oversteering moment there for them, headed out of Luffield and into Woodcut. So now, on the run down towards Copse Corner, how much are they going to risk here? Are they going to stay flat? No, they shift down, lift off briefly, and that then means, of course, they can keep the revs nice and high, keep that overall pace high. When you get towards the top gears here, being in 8th there with low revs, the torque isn't going to be good enough to keep the speed up for you. So through Maggots and Becketts and Chapel they go, and over the split time they go once again. It's 4.5 tenths up. This is a very good lap so far for Maceo. If they can maintain this sort of level of improvement, they'll improve by about 6 tenths. That would get them up around about 5th place, where their teammate Memento is at the moment. So, through into the final couple of corners then, into the Vale chicane. Left first, hitting the apex nicely. Then the same with the right-hander. Now, through Club Corner we go. Whereabouts will Maceo put their Mercedes? It's second! Woo. What a Maceo! Brilliant start there for the Mercedes driver. Now, obviously, we've got the rest of the grid still to come, all on their outlaps or time laps at this moment. And, well, that bodes well as far as the track evolution is concerned.
Yeah, that third sector was absolutely lightning. I don't know what he did, but he pulled out something special. Maybe poured a little bit of magic sauce on those rear tires and got so much grip coming out of that final chicane. He looked absolutely planted. Amazing lap for Maceo.
Very, very good indeed. Now, one driver I'll draw our attention to, down in 9th place, but hoping to start on the front row, if not on pole position, is Vincent Nyquist, one of our 2 championship protagonists here today. Now, down towards the end of the first sector, what's it going to be? Only 1.5 tenths up on their previous best. Seems like Silverstone might be a bogey track for both of the McLaren drivers here. Look at this then. Vincent comes round Luffield, rather, and into Woodcut. This right-hander here, they now head down towards Copse Corner as their teammate now is approaching the timing line. We'll keep with Vincent here, and I'll keep an eye on what Fionn is doing. And Fionn comes across the timing line. They are down by a tenth. So, of the 2 drivers, Vincent is looking the better as far as improving so far is concerned. But it's not over for Fionn just yet. Towards the end of Maggots and Becketts, we come then on board with Vincent Nyquist. And it is 4 tenths up on their previous best. This is suddenly looking like a potential pole lap here for the McLaren driver. Through Stowe Corner they go. And down towards the Vale chicane. In just a moment's time, we see ahead of them that there's a car abandoning the lap. That is a Red Bull pulling into the pits. That is Jeremy Glinner. So Jeremy will not improve. And so, through the final couple of corners, where's it going to be for Vincent Nyquist? Second place by 500ths of a second for the McLaren driver. And that is a great shame for them to miss out on pole position by just that much. It means that Jeremy Glinner might go for an unprecedented 6 poles in a row unless anybody else can stop them. But as it is, Fionn McKee comes round the last couple of corners then. Our other championship protagonist, it wasn't looking too good at the end of the second sector. Where does it go? It's third place for Fionn McKee. They keep it alive. Oh, and now we've got the Ferrari driver of Norby, who's been mega fast all season. Very unlucky in the races. Where are they going to put their prancing horse here at the Silverstone circuit this evening? Round the last couple of corners, they come then up towards the line. And what will Norby be able to do as they head onto the Hamilton straight? It's third. They split the McLarens. It means Fionn will start on the dirty side of the grid. No, they won't, because Alexander Johansen jumps up into third position in their Alpha Tauri. And now the only driver who can improve is Momentu in 10th place currently in the Mercedes, but had a good first run and into the pits they go. So that then is your qualifying order. Jeremy Glinner takes their 6th pole position of the season, 6th in a row, which I'm certain must make them the best qualifier in PSGL. I will happily take the criticism if I'm wrong there, but I don't have all 20 or 30, however many divisions, tables in front of me to have a check of that for certain. But that is a fantastic effort from them, closing out the last qualifying session of the season in style. It is then Vincent Nyquist who strikes first blood against their championship rival Fionn McKee in second place. Then in third, we have Alexander Johansen and Norby in fourth. Then in fifth, it is that other championship protagonist, Fionn McKee. From then, 5th place down, we have Alex Berry, Maceo, JXN, Kinty, Momentu, Ali Finn, Dimitri Minich, Jerry Van Bussel, Elliot Noren, and Danny Cofield does not set a time.
Wow, what a qualifying. Holy smokes. The intense amount of drama and intrigue at the very end of that was absolutely exceptional. I love seeing qualifying sessions like that come down to the wire. If you do look at that gap between Alexander Johansson and Norby, it's 3,000ths of a second. So all these drivers are so dang close in speed and pace. I'm sure this means it's just going to be an absolutely incredible season finale here.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. Let's get ready to rumble, as they would say in certain contact sports over in the States. So there we are then. Everything is, I don't know where I was going with that one. I'm British. Forgive me, everybody. So we're getting ready to go down onto the grid then. I'm not certain whether or not we've implemented broadcast formation lap, because that is not bugged, as of course all formation laps were earlier on in this season. And so we were going just straight to lights out in the earlier part of the season. Whether or not we've changed that for the final round, I don't know. We'll find out in a moment though. Yeah. And now then, as everybody gets ready to go, we've got just about 10 seconds or so, 10 seconds now, until we go into the session itself. Punju, any one-word prediction for how this race will go?
Electric.
Excellent. There we are then.
That's my word.
Excellent. So it looks like we're going straight in then. 3, 4, 5 red lights. Lights out, and away we go after a very... It looks like an excellent start. A fantastic start. A potentially champion start for Vincent Nyquist, up into first place in the first corner, beating out Jeremy Glinner there, and Fionn McKee is able to maintain position in 5th. They've got a decent gap to Alex Berry behind in the Alpine. They're not under threat from them, and it seems like they're just keeping things careful for now. They could have gone for a move at any point here between the Ferrari and the AlphaTauri in front of them, who are duking out side by side, but now on the run down towards Brooklands corner, the McLaren moves to the inside. There's a massive accident somewhere in the back of the shot there, and up the inside! Fantastic move from Fionn McKee, but they just overstretched too much there, and they've lost the position now to Alexander Johansson, potentially one to Norby as well, and maybe one to Alex Berry, as it is the McLaren and the Ferrari are side by side. Imagine how many times that's been said in Formula One history. And now into Copse Corner, they get ahead of Norby. They manage to get themselves up into 4th place, but it's not over yet on the run down towards Maggotts and Beckett's. But now it looks like the Ferrari just decides that caution is the better part of valor, and they slot in behind the McLaren for now. Now, as we make our run down towards Stowe Corner, I just want to draw attention to the great big ominous grey clouds in the distance. Ooh, I wonder if we've got rain coming.
I hope we do. It is Silverstone after all, so I know it rains more than it shines there, so we definitely have a really good chance of it. That is amazing for me to look at as a commentator. Oh,
absolutely. Further back down the field, we've got some very, very exciting racing going on. Maybe down, but then we're trying to go around the side in the final turn. Hasn't quite worked, and now means that they are under threat. Past the Alfa Romeo, just squeezes them, and now there's a bit of contact there, side by side, wheels and tires banging away, and now as they head into the loop, Dimitri keeps their nose in it and just manages to edge out the Aston Martin. Now as they go on to the Wellington Straight, the Aston's going to have a bit of a better run, but that being said, it looks as though Dimitri is just keeping their head ahead, I suppose, of the car behind. And, well, as far as tyre strategy, something we've not been able to mention so far because it's been so exciting, everybody on the hard tyres, not a single dissent amongst them. Dissenting opinion, I should say. And now then, it will be similar strategies all the way through. That then means that it is further advantage to Vincent Nyquist, because if they and their teammate want to pit on the same lap, it's going to mean that Theon will come off second best. But big mistake from Alexander Johansen. Big mistake indeed through Maggots and Beckett. And they have lost buckets of time there to not just to Jeremy Glinner in front, but also to Theon McKee behind, who is desperately trying to keep the Ferrari of Norby behind them. But practically untroubled out front is Vincent Nyquist. Now, the gap is incredibly close between them and Jeremy Glinner, but the pair of them have barely used any ERS at all, whereas Alexander Johansen has used nearly half of his battery. That is absolutely outstanding. The pace is being demonstrated by the two at the front there as Jeremy Glinner sets our new fastest lap.
Wow. This, I mentioned the word electric at the very beginning, and it definitely has been. I do want to, pay some, or have people type some Fs in the chat for both Memento and Elliot Noren, both having little collisions on lap 1 and 2 respectively. Really, really, really unfortunate. Elliot Noren got caught up right after, I want to say it was Antry, around that loop area. And then Memento got caught up right around Brooklands. Very, very tough for them. Their races have been pushed down to the very back of the grid.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely saw an AlphaTauri spearing off towards the wall on the Wellington Straight there on the first lap as the camera looked back towards the rest of the field. So, unfortunate for Elliott. They've had a bag of a season. We all remember their fantastic defensive driving in Miami when they were able to keep the charging cars behind using that special straight line speed setup they had. No doubt some 0-0 wings were being used on that occasion. But now it becomes interesting up at the front because we've got DRS open on the Red Bull and Vincent Nyquist being closed down slightly, but not by enough for a move to be sent up the inside into Stowe. What about down into Vale? Not this time, it seems, for the fish-helmeted Red Bull driver.
Yeah, we've got the colorful rainbow snake of cars that's going on right now. Not a whole lot of overtaking going on. It's looking like, the closest gap that I'm seeing on the grid is just a 2/10 gap, and everything else outside of that is a little farther. I know that when you get up to these DRS straights here in Silverstone, you need to be within about 3 or 4 tenths to have any shout of getting past using your DRS. And that's if you happen to have a straight line speed setup that's relatively close to, your rival opponent that's in front of you. Any larger gap than that, there's no chance you're going to be passing on these DRS straights. It's about to be evidence right here with Jeremy Glinner. He was 4.5 tenths, and he can only make about a 1/10.5 up on that Wellington straight. So I'm guessing we're only going to see some overtakes farther down the grid, 10th and past, for the next couple laps.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is what I was talking about during qualifying. It's a circuit which is fantastic in the real world, can be fantastic if you're racing against AI, but when you're up against drivers of a similar skill level and the car's performance is equalized, Silverstone actually just tends to turn into a little bit of a train, really, here. It's not the most exciting final round. That being said, anytime anyone makes a mistake, then it's pounced upon immediately. One driver I want to give a shout out to, though, because they've had a start of starts, frankly. It's been very, very impressive, and now hold the fastest lap so far is Jerry Van Bussel in the Williams. They are now headed into Stowe Corner, tucked in behind Alex Berry at the moment. They have made their way up 6 positions, and as I give them all those compliments, they go wide at Stowe Corner. But there we are. We've now got yellow flags in Sector 3 as Dmitry Minic has fallen off the back of the order, and this, unfortunately, symptomatic of Dimitri's season so far. That's the second time I've said Jeremy when I've meant Dmitry. That was very strange. But yes, Dmitry having a bit of a, as I mentioned earlier on, bit of a rough second half to the season after it started out very promisingly. But ultimately, it's been combat. That's really been their biggest failing. They have gone for gaps which have not necessarily always been there. They've tried to fight something that's already lost or where there's a potential to counterattack later, but they've just seen the carrot on a stick in front of them. They've gone for it very entertainingly at times, must be said. But unfortunately for them, it means they've come off second best on a number of occasions and down the order, as has happened here today, unless it's just been an unforced error. So unfortunately for Dmitry, maybe they'll be able to come back into it later on if we see a safety car. Good overtake by Kinty during all of that waffling on my part there as Maceo goes down another position. Unfortunate for them, they've just not really had the same pace in the race so far that they did have in qualifying. But now then, as we take a look at the last points-paying position of Danny Cofield, they are also another one of my stars of the race so far, up 5 positions versus their start, having not set a time in qualifying, and now have the DRS open. Despite the fact that Maceo does as well, they have great straight-line speed here, go up the inside into Stowe, and that's another position gained for the Alpine driver.
Well,
6 positions so far. But look at this then, there's a bit of fight here in Maceo. The Mercedes sends it up the inside in the Vale chicane, and it's just fought off there around the outside by Danny Cofield. And this is what I mean. Oh, big slide for Maceo. They may have been tapped up the back there by Ali Finn. Wasn't able to quite get a good view on that one.
Almost certainly was. They were.
Yeah.
They were.
Real unfortunate moment for them there. They're their own there to be tapped at the back there, just lose the back end of the car. And then they've lost 3 positions as a result of all of that. And then just to add insult to injury, the cars in front of them are now getting time penalties for corner cutting and gaining places and all sorts of other things. Dmitry Minic has retired from the final round of the season in the pit lane and has left the session. Dear oh dear. It's not been the greatest of seasons and certainly not the greatest final race for them either. That's a shame because you never know what could have happened later on with safety cars and all the rest of it. So that's a shame for them there, but it's all go for the rest of the field as it is. The gap's not massive between everybody at the moment. The vast majority of the field under a second versus the car in front or behind. The only real exceptions to that rule, or now I say that, the only exception to that rule is Kinty. Elliott is another one, I suppose, way off the back of the field, but in terms of those still in the hunt, still fighting other cars on circuit and not far away. Kinty, the only one not within a second of the car in front. So we've got 2 enormous DRS trains in operation. If Kinty were able to get themselves onto the back of Jerry Van Bussel in the not-too-distant future, get themselves within DRS, then we would have less so a train and more of a snake going around Silverstone.
Yeah, it would be quite a long snake, too. I mean, already we got the top 7 all in that snake. That is pretty massive of a DRS train. They are pretty decently sized, gapped out too. I remember how I was talking about how you really have to be within about that 3/10 gap to actually have a hope of making a pass on somebody in DRS. Jeremy Glinner can't get closer than a half a second, is what it seems like by the time straightaway starts. So any advantage he's getting from his DRS is kind of getting washed up. However, he is hardly using any energy. If you notice, he's literally sitting at 100%. So he's got a lot left in that tank. Maybe he's just waiting for a late move. Maybe he's expecting Vincent to possibly undercut him, and in exchange, that's where Jeremy's going to dump all of his energy. I'm not exactly sure. Strategy is not something that I'm necessarily 100% well versed in, but it is something to pay attention to as the race goes on.
Absolutely, yeah. 3-second time penalty for Kinty then for overstepping track limits. And I think you're absolutely on as far as ERS deployment on Jeremy Glinner's car is concerned. The overcut is something that can work spectacularly well. And we know that when not in dirty air in qualifying, Jeremy was able to put their car on pole position with a time that they set earlier in the session versus then the circuit evolutionary times of everybody else towards the end of the session. So in clean air, they're incredibly quick, and judging by how they've been able to stick within about 3 or 2 tenths of Vincent Nyquist this whole race long, I say all that, and then they go to 4/10, but there we are. They clearly have an awful lot of pace in the tank here. So, given the hard tires don't really tend to fall off too badly at all, between sort of 40 and 80% tire wear, they tend to produce the same lap times all the way through that portion of the stint. So they're very, very consistent in this game. And so as a result, you're looking at then a driver in front who is starting to have to eke into their ERS allowance in order to try and keep ahead, because of course Jeremy does have the DRS behind. But then Jeremy, as you rightly say, and as we can see in fact on screen at the moment, now 100% available to them before they just have a little bit of a dab of it just to get a bit of extra pace on the exit of the corner. And now as to go through Copse, it's a Red Bull chasing the win here. And when have we said that? In 2022? Oh, yeah, a lot. It's one which we're very familiar with. And then here at the F5, it's been a fantastic duke 'em out between the two McLarens. But as I say, Jeremy has been a late season surprise and really taken the fight to them. And we're seeing now what it's like when the two of them are locked in a really quite close and vicious battle at the moment. All this while, Fionn McKee is just sat there in 4th position watching their title rival go unimpeded towards what could be the title itself. And as I say, it is going to ultimately be as Kinty now falls down the order. A bit of a mistake there then possibly from them. No, it's the pit lane. Into the pit lane goes Kinty, but they speed into the pit lane. They add another time penalty to their woes. Dear oh dear, and they've retired from the session, as you rightly say. Oh, well. That's a surprise, given that they were running in good points there.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of people in the world of league racing do tend to retire in the pits. I've never fully understood why, because you put out a really good point. Safety cars, man, like they shake up a race like nobody's business. And when they do happen, whoops, sorry about that, guys. When they do happen, they, allow people that have had the definition of a howler of a race to get right back up in the fight. I mean, even if you're in 13th place, but everybody's separated off of a safety car, you can snap 3 or 4 of them off of the restart, and now you're right back up in the points. So I've never really fully understood it, but we already have had 2 that have decided to take that way out for the race today.
Absolutely, yeah. And I can tell you exactly why. It's the rules. If you're going to retire from a session, then you've got to do lane for the exact reason you described.
Well, yes.
So on track, it'll bring out a safety car, and then there's allegations of race fixing and all the rest of it. So there we are. That's why it happens. And if you, like Punju, did not know, then now you do.
I think maybe I explained it wrong. I'm just curious as to why people retire even in the first place. I know you have to retire in the pits, yes, but it's just the concept of retiring in general. I mean, you never know what could happen, man. There could be a safety car later in the race, and you could be in 13th, and boom, you're all the way up into 10th just off a good restart.
Absolutely. Yep, you're absolutely right. So it is a bit of a mystery, especially when you're running in points, as I think Kinty was. There may have been a little bit of a gap away from Pack, but they were still in good points to round out their season, a season which has seen 1 podium in the first round of the season, and then unfortunately, not much else after that. 2 other points finishes in the first 3 rounds, so all 3 rounds they managed to score. But then after that, it was no more for them. DNF, 0 points, did not start. DNF, and now there'll be 1 more DNF on that tally there. So Kinty, unfortunate, and unfortunately we don't get to see a prancing horse, other than Norby, of course, competing out there today. So Alex Berry gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings as they try and get themselves closer to the back of Norby there. The top 5 in particular having massive amounts of pace today in this race, it would seem. But for Jeremy Glinner, small mistake there for the Red Bull driver. Ended up, they lost time to Vincent Nyquist through Maggots and Beckett's. But as we now do, mistake there from Vincent Nyquist. Very uncharacteristic mistake. Headed out the exit of Stowe there. Bit of an oversteer moment. Almost had a swapper on, but they managed to just keep it moving in the right direction and keep it ahead of Jeremy Glinner. They used a little bit of ERS just to keep in front as well, just for good measure. But as things stand, things are now very, very close once more again amongst this top 5. A mistake from any one of them that's any more than just a little bit of a wobble, and you could potentially lose 4 positions if you are Vincent Nyquist. Of course, that 4th position would be to Norby, which would then put you 1 position away, 2 positions away rather, from your title rival, and not in the way which would benefit you. which of course it is right now. So, as far as options for Fion are concerned, though, it's very interesting because, of course, they could try for the undercut. They would fall into clean air at this point, and if they didn't, there's only really 2 cars they might fall behind, or 1, actually, more accurately, and that would be Elliott way off at the back of the pack, but Elliott, with old tyres, wouldn't be a match at all for Fion, so that's an option available to them. There is also the overcut as an opportunity, but of course, if their rival goes into the pits and then doesn't get held up by traffic on their outlap, then the overcut may not happen at all. And then, of course, if their type of rival goes into the pits, but the cars in between Fion and them don't, then oh, and look at this! Jeremy there put Vincent on the defensive. Ooh. Further up the road, we were just able to see that. The McLaren went for a defensive inside line into Stowe there, and it means then that through Vale and now Club, they are very, very close to one another. And this then is something which we're just looking to here. This battle might turn interesting before the end of this first stint here, because we are now getting towards the end of that first stint. It might be that because everybody's on hard tyres, usually we see a little bit of discontent there. There's a bit of a dissenting opinion as far as what tyres to be on. And it leads me to think then, with all these grey clouds starting to form, could it be that we're going to have a wet period towards the end of this race? And it's going to be all about how you keep your hard tyres alive until that crossover point? Interesting.
I'm thinking you might be right, but it doesn't look quite grey enough to be too much of a threat of rain. I'm not really seeing a whole ton of massive masses of clouds. Really just little sprinklings here and there, and so I'm not sure if we're going to get the rain. If we do, it's going to be very, very, very late in the session.
I think it's going to be very... I think that we may even have a move in the not-too-distant future, possibly even down this hangar straight in a few moments' time, because I've been noticing from our onboard all lap long that Vincent appears to be struggling a bit more on the tyres than Jeremy Glinner is. Look at this now! Full deployment for the Red Bull, DRS in operation, and they swoop round the outside of the McLaren, up into the lead of this race. Jeremy Glinner retakes the lead, which they've not had since the first few meters of this race. Vincent Nyquist down into second, and immediately they have Alexander Johansen breathing down their neck. Now, is Jeremy going to be able to get their foot down here? Managed to break away. They've already got fastest lap now as a result of that overtake and the deployment they used on that lap. If they're able to just keep themselves ahead and keep themselves far enough ahead of Vincent that they're able to then start driving away from the McLaren, could be that the McLaren ends up losing DRS to them, and then there'd be a sitting duck for Vincent Nyquist, for Alexander Johansen behind. It's suddenly becoming quite interesting in this race here today.
Now, if you notice, the top 3 are all back into their positions that they were at the start of this race. None of them either gaining or losing any sort of position. So it's kind of, as she wrote from the start, which is very interesting. Now, I think that Vincent is probably going to be playing the safe game. I don't think he's too upset that Jeremy's gotten in front of him, because Vincent knows all he's got to do is just stay in front of Fion, and he'll win this race. Or he'll win this championship.
I was going to say, staying in front of Fion doesn't necessarily mean... So we're seeing evidence of that right now. But there we are then.
Potato, tomato, it's not the same, but they mean different things.
My British brain can't understand the word you just said. I think you mean tomatoes, dear. But there we are. So it's Vincent Nyquist down the back straight, then down that hangar straight, and trying to stay in touch with Jeremy Glinner here, but it's not really working out for them at all. They've not been able to gain quite so much time onto the Red Bull, and the Red Bull and McLaren are both now starting to burn through their ERS charge. Now that move has happened, they are desperate to both run away in terms of Jeremy and stay with Vincent Nyquist. Jeremy sets another fastest lap of this race, and Vincent does not have an answer. They do not respond in kind, as it turns out. So this is moving more and more towards the Red Bull's advantage and away from the McLaren. Now, big slide as well for Vincent Nyquist there. That loses them time versus the Red Bull in front. It's nearly a second now, the gap between them. They're going to have DRS here down the Wellington Straight, but it's just going to fill them with more doubt here. Meanwhile, Fion has had all race long to get used to driving in dirty air. This is all new for Vincent, remember. At this circuit, they have been leading the race for the majority of it so far, which has meant that they've had nice clean air, their aerodynamics performing as they expect, and it could be that their setup is overly harsh to the tyres. That then could explain why Jeremy is starting to drive away from them, especially in the corners, and it could also mean why Alexander Johansen is able to stick quite nicely with Vincent Nyquist throughout these last couple of laps as well. It's staying around about 6/10 so far as they go through Maggots and Beckett's, but crucially, it's a closer gap than that which Vincent has to the car in front. Once again then, DRS open for all these cars down the hangar straight, and they're going to run then all the way to Stowe, with Jeremy still holding the advantage. Over half a second by the time they get to the braking zone for Stowe, which is a greater advantage than that which they held, and into the pits! Into the pits go all these cars. That means Alexander Johansen is going to take the lead of this race, even if it's only temporarily. And Fionn McKee now needs to make this the lap of their life if they want to have any chance at all of passing their teammate and getting a hand on the championship trophy.
Now, there is the possibility of on their way out of the pits, Vincent Nyquist gets held up by Jeremy Glinner, and Jeremy Glinner maybe has, a little bit of a mini spin or something like that. There's anything can happen on their way out of the pits, and that is everything that Fionn is just really hoping for. He's just hoping for some drama down there to help him out. Now, obviously, it's kind of hard to count on things going wrong, but at the same time, that's about all he can count on when it comes to the potentiality of making up some positions here.
Absolutely, yes. Completely right. And now, as they head out the pits then, Jeremy does not seem to be showing any signs of trying to hold up. Instead, seems to be trying to break away as possible. And that then doesn't bode well for Fionn up at the front, who is still stuck behind Alexander Johansen. Closer this time than where they were. They've both been using ERS versus the start of this lap. A big slide and a big moment there for Alexander Johansen as well. This could lend another position then to Fionn McKee down the hangar straight, but it seems as though the AlphaTauri may well have enough straight line speed just to be able to stay in front. Yes, they do, into the braking zone for Stowe. Will Fionn come into the pits this time, or will they try one more lap? No, into the pits they come then. Now, we saw them try the Sebastian Vettel earlier on, but this time there is a punishment for speeding into the pit lane, and so they don't risk it. Into the pits they come then, and they will not have any penalties to serve. Neither will the car in front of them until the end of this race, given that they only carry a 3-second time penalty and not a 5. So, as we watch now then, our attention goes to Jeremy Glinner and to the car behind them, Vincent Nyquist, as they head round Stowe Corner, down towards Vale and Club. Where is Fionn McKee? Maceo gets a 3-second time penalty in second place in this race. And it looks as though Fionn is now starting to leave the pits, but will they be able to come out before those cars come past? I don't think they will. Round the first corner goes Jeremy Glinner, and they are ahead of Alexander Johansen and ahead of Vincent Nyquist. But crucially there, Vincent Nyquist almost lost that position to Alexander Johansen. So, very, very close between those drivers there. Fionn needs to get a shift on here because they will have DRS down the Wellington straight here, but they are not close to the back of Alexander Johansen. They are on cold tyres versus Norby, and it's all very close indeed. Let's look at the lap age. Yep, Norby has got those tyres that are up to temperature. So does Jerry Van Bussel. Suddenly, a Williams sticks their nose into this fight as well. And now it's side by side between the Williams and the Ferrari. Stowe Corner, both of them have their tyres warmed up. Little bit of a pinch there from Jerry Van Bussel. And now as they go through Cops, it's the run down towards Maggots and Beckett's. And by this time, you would imagine that Fionn McKee has those tyres up to temperature. A little bit of a slide, though, taking too much curb for the McLaren driver. And now Danny Cofield gets a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Now then, onto this back straight, onto the hangar straight. Jerry is using all of their ERS to try and get by the McLaren. The McLaren has no DRS at all. They're squeezed in a sandwich, 3 wide into Stowe Corner, and they lose that position to Jerry Van Bussel. Now then, into Vale Corner, will they think about getting by? They won't, because Norby sends it up the inside of the McLaren, who squeezes the Ferrari out on exit. And that then all means that it gives Jerry Van Bussel, who had almost no ERS remaining at all, just a little bit of a breather, which is what we're going to need by the end of this race.
That send from Norby was extremely opportunistic. I know I mentioned there were two. You said there was only really one major braking zone. I said, well, there's a second one, and it's the Vale chicane. And you said, yeah, but, there's probably not going to be a lot of passes right there. Norby just tried to prove you wrong and really send it hardcore up the inside. He almost had it done, too, but luckily enough, Fionn saw him coming and gave him enough room to be able to get a proper exit out of that. That was close. That was very close.
Absolutely, yes, indeed. And, well, what a turn of events this has been then. This can only hurt Fion in the championship charge because now they have a car in front of them, the DRS, of course, but they are now over 2 seconds off the back of Alexander Johansen, who themselves are over a second away from Vincent Nyquist. If things stay as they are, it's game over for Fionn McKee. They will lose the championship that they have held the lead of since the second round of the season.
Yeah, this is looking pretty intriguing at the top. I know you just mentioned it, but that's crazy that now Fionn 2 places to make up between him and Vincent. That seems almost insurmountable. You know, obviously this is league racing; anything can happen, right? But that's over 3 seconds between the two of them, and it's looking relatively hopeless, for lack of a better term, for Fionn when it comes to his championship opportunity.
Absolutely. Now, you're absolutely right earlier on suggesting skies may not quite be grey enough to show us a bit of rain towards the end of this race, unless it is very late in this race. But I just want to make note of Maceo here. Still out in the lead of the race, on the hard tyres they started the race on, and as they come through the first sector, bearing in mind that there will have been points well have had of DRS down that first sector in this race, they are only 0.2 off of their personal best in that first sector. So still a lot of pace on board in this Mercedes, and you have to wonder, why would you stay out this much longer? The cars around them, as they get a 3-second time penalty just to add to their woes. But the point still stands. Why would you stay out this long when the cars around you, they are, they're going to be they're gonna be on their fresh tyres now. They're going to be, massive moment for Maceo! They don't hit the wall. But that was very, very close to a DNF and potentially a safety car that could have made this race very interesting indeed.
Yeah, he lost a little over 5 seconds for that sweet 360, but it was a pretty sweet 360. We can't even lie. That was a good way to recover it back around and start looking forward. But unfortunately for Maceo, he's now finally going to have to go pit. I think he should have done that 1 lap earlier. He would have avoided that, beautiful style points, but massive disadvantage in time for losing all that grip. Do you think he's going to go on the softs and try to stretch him, or do you think he's going to get on mediums?
Softs around this circuit, I would say probably just a qualifying tyre, and it seems as though Maceo agrees. Mediums showing up on the graphic, and in the pit lane, in fact, you can see there as well. So, yeah, that's mediums then. The entire field using a hard to medium strategy here. And really, unless we happen to have a safety car in the closing stages, I think that this will then be the order that runs all the way through to the end here. Jerry Van Bussel has fallen off the back of Alexander Johansen massively. Alexander, to their credit, has been able to get back within a second of Vincent Nyquist there. So the DRS, engine and caboose, I suppose. Not quite a train, if it's just 2 cars, but of Jeremy and Vincent. Not quite able to get away from Alexander Johansen, who now has the fastest lap of this race. So they then, in hot pursuit, and you never know, maybe a late race collision there might suddenly make this championship very interesting and get blown wide open. But as is, Vincent has about half their ERS, so does Jeremy. And Alexander Johansen has less than 10%, you can see from the flashing red light on the back of that AlphaTauri. So unlikely that we're going to see any moves from them. Jeremy, look at this though, Fionn McKee suddenly jumping up and round the outside in Stowe corner. They're side by side with Jerry Van Bussel, and now they get in front of the Williams. They get up into 4th place, and that then means that it is game back on for the McLaren. If they can unleash some mega pace towards the end of this race here, just 6 laps to go as they do a purple final sector here in Silverstone, then they might be able to get themselves onto the back of that train. With Alexander Johansen then limping with low ERS, they might be able to make something happen, might be able to get themselves into a position to fight. And then if they do, they'll just be 1 position behind their championship rival, and then anything can happen. Bearing in mind, of course, if both drivers fail to finish, then Fionn wins the championship by half a point.
That being said, I'm sure Vincent Nyquist knows that, if he fails to finish, Fionn's going to win this thing. So I'm sure Vincent Nyquist is going to be playing super, super cautiously over the next 6 laps to try to finish out this race just a little bit ahead. He doesn't really care how far ahead he is of Fionn. All he cares is that he is ahead. And so I'm expecting a very cautious drive for the next 6 laps from Vincent.
Well, it might want to be a cautious drive, but right behind them now by just 0.3 of a second is Alexander Johansen, who is looking racy and aggressive so far. in this race as we get now this run down the hangar straight once more. DRS, I think, is saving Vincent here, to be honest with you. I think that Vincent's setup, as we saw in the first stint, with how they ended up losing that position to Jeremy, and what we might be seeing hints of here as well, not geared well towards running in dirty air, and perhaps not good on the tyres as well, because they seem through the corners to be struggling a bit more versus Alexander Johansen behind. Certainly seems to be the case. Whether or not that is the case in reality, and I'm just talking nonsense, it remains to be seen. But it wouldn't be the first time. And as we now watch then, them coming through this first sector once more, it's very, very close between Alexander and Vincent. They come through the final part of the loop then onto the Wellington Straight, and again, it looks as though perhaps on traction through the corners where it matters, Vincent has a good measure on Alexander Johansen here. But yeah, it looks like they're able just to keep themselves ahead. Speaking of keeping ahead, Theon McKee is able to keep ahead of Jerry Van Bussel for now, is slowly growing that gap out. But then in addition to that, they seem to be ever so slightly closing down the gap to Johansen in front, but it's not by much. In fact, it's concertinaing between sort of 2.7 and 2.9 seconds, as you can see there. So I think that unfortunately for Theon, it is championship in flames here today.
Now, I will say, there's one thing that I've been trying my best to pay attention to every once in a while. It's the JXN versus Danny Code down low in 8th and 9th. They've been battling it out like it's a fight for their life. I've seen them go side by side multiple times, almost make collisions multiple times for the past few laps. And if there's going to be a safety car, I think it's going to be caught by them.
Well, as you say that, I'm on board right now. JXN just making contact with one of the rear wheels of Danny there. It was very, very close indeed between you. You can see from the onboard of the Williams that there's that flashing red light on the back of the Alpine, so less than 10% ERS available to them. And you're absolutely right, we could end up seeing an incident between these two, could end up seeing a safety car, but the game is hard-coded to allow 2 laps of racing at the end, even if there is a safety car-worthy incident. So if we get to lap 24 and there's no safety car, then there's not going to be. So it's very cool. Oh, Theon has made a huge mistake. They have dropped down multiple positions down to P7. Now, what happened there? We can't possibly know. Neither of us were looking at it, unfortunately. But that all but confirms championship over. But let's not lose heart, any Theon fans in the chat. If you are there, you've not made yourselves known so far this season, so I doubt you would in the final round. But there we are. We have them. If they are there, then remember, there was a McLaren driver many years ago, suffered a loss in positions towards the last few laps of the Grand Prix in the final race of the season, where they needed to finish and get a certain number of points in order to win the championship. And they managed to do so in the final corner of the final lap. Now, I'm not suggesting that it's going to be a carbon copy of that here today, but what I'm saying is there's always hope.
You never know.
You never know indeed. It could be that Vincent goes out of this race entirely. But Theon, please don't do it. Don't retire from the final round of the pit. Will it be a last few laps dash onto the soft tyres, or are we looking at a retirement? Oh, well, we'll find out in a few moments' time. I think if they get into the box and they don't retire, then it could be that we're still game on. But this
it's
then,
soft.
Soft tyres for the McLaren. And away they go then. So they're going to try for a fastest lap, send out the season on a relative high. But that then means that all eyes move to the front of the field and to Vincent Nyquist. Now, all they need to do now is score a point. That's all they need to do. Score a point and the championship is yours. But they're a racer. They are sticking close behind Jeremy Glinner. They're not through, but they then slot into a gap of just about 4 seconds ahead of Norby behind. Instead, they're cracking on. I think that in their heart of hearts, they want to win the championship by winning the race, and you wouldn't blame them for trying. So, Vincent Nyquist, you have 3 laps. Show us what you've got.
Oh my gosh, this really has been electric. I think Theon getting that last little win by stealing the fastest lap is, I think it's a good little message.
Oh, let's take a look at Jerry Van Bussel here. Sorry to interrupt you, but Jerry Van Bussel up the inside of Norby. The rear end just gives away all the grip, and then Alex Berry comes through, of all people, just lingering in the background there, ready to pounce on a mistake, and the mistake came, and that then means they are up into 5th place. But Norby, crucially, one of very few drivers left running in this race not to carry a time penalty, and so they are under no real threat from any of the cars behind them. Unless, of course, you count Elliott or Fionn, but both those cars are a long way away from the Ferrari.
Wow. Yeah, I barely just jumped on right as I saw that little tussle going on. Speaking of tussle, Jerry Van Bussel has been giving it to all these drivers as much as he possibly can. He started so far down the grid and already sitting in 6th place. He's definitely our most improved driver of the day as of right now. Also, everybody in the chat, make sure you put in your driver of the day submissions, whoever you think deserves it. In my opinion, as of right now, I'm going to give it to either Vincent Nyquist or Jeremy Glinner for both just running their consistent race and staying up at the top.
Jeremy Glinner, I think, definitely a worthy shout. I would also say that Jerry Van Bussel and Danny Cofield, two drivers who are worthy of the honor. They've kept their heads for the most part. They do have some time penalties, as you can see, but they've kept their heads mostly and been able to get themselves now into the top 7 positions after both having started in the last 2 positions on this grid. So 7 and 8, no, sorry, not the last 2 positions, otherwise they'd have the same number of positions gained. As it is then, it's very close indeed. And Alex Berry. Alex Berry falls down the order. That means then that Danny Cofield goes past them, as does JXN on that harsh battle that is going on between those 2 drivers. But as we say, now that we're on lap 24, there's no safety car. So, lads, or ladettes, however they choose to identify, it is 2022 after all, go at it and let's see what happens in these last couple of laps. But that being said, our race leader has started lap 25, and now they're invisible. Have they left the session?
I saw left the session.
Jeremy Glinner. Oh dear, Jeremy Glinner, it's all gone wrong, and they've allowed Alexander Johansen's ghost, Jeremy Glinner's ghost has allowed Alexander Johansen through. As long as they can stay within 3 seconds of the AlphaTauri, it means that they will then go on, of course, and take 2nd place, but dear, oh dear, as Fionn McKee sets the fastest lap of this race, their teammate Vincent Nyquist takes the lead on lap 25 of 26 here at Silverstone, and it's all falling into place for the McLaren driver.
Wow, that is absolutely a dream come true for Vincent Nyquist. As I do see, Jeremy Glinner has now rejoined. His car is still half visible, but he'll probably be taking control of it. And even now, he pops him in the pits. Interesting.
Oh.
Jeremy Glinner now.
Dear.
What is going on?
That is a real shame for Jeremy Glinner. They did nothing wrong at all. Did everything right, in fact, except for the start. And then the AI decides to chuck them into the pits for a set of softs at the end of this race. When they could have finished on the podium, it now looks very, very unlikely. So that's a massive shame for them. But, that's virtual racing sometimes. These problems happen. Unpredictable things can occur. And as a result, it means then that, they end up having a bit of an awful time of it, it must be said. But we press on. We have our final lap yet to complete. And Vincent Nyquist leads from Alexander Johansen, who will not be able to get, and Fionn McKee retires from the session in the pit lane. They know it's over. As they see that their teammate has regained the lead. So it's been a good championship battle between these 2 drivers, but on balance of pace, on balance of performance, on the fact that they did not attend 2 races, Vincent Nyquist is headed towards the championship, having looked an absolutely fantastic driver. They dumped all of their ERS on the hangar straight. They want to do this on circuit, even if they would win the race finishing behind Alexander Johansen. They come round Stowe Corner. It's been a fantastic season for them. 4 victories. Make it a 5th. As now, through the final couple of corners, Vincent Nyquist is your PSGL PCF5 champion with a win here in Silverstone.
Congratulations to Vincent Nyquist. What a finish for him. And I do also want to, give some shouts to these 2 guys sitting in 4th and 5th, now down to 6th. JXN and Danny battling it out all the way to the very end. Was great to watch them as well. But Vincent Nyquist, obviously the highlight of the day. What a race from him, and a heck of a way to finish off the championship. Lick the stamp and send it into next season. That is gorgeous. Gorgeous way to finish.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. I don't think anyone can deny that was a wonderful flourish to end the season. And special shout out to Norby, who finishes on the podium for the third time this season, bringing the prancing horse to the team's fourth podium so far this season. So, Game Awards Driver of the Day, but I want to know, Punju.
Oh, say that one more time. Sorry, you cut out for just a second.
Who is your Driver of the Day, I tell you?
I would say probably my driver of the day is going to go to Vincent Nyquist. I've just got to give love for the winner. Obviously, winning a championship in and of itself deserves, I would say, a driver of the day, and he just did it in style. He did it so calm and collected. He had a couple little moments, but at the same time, they didn't rattle him to the point that he fell down the ladder and just started, tumbling. They only just were minor errors, minor lapses of judgment, and he still closed it out with a amazing championship finish. So, Vincent Nyquist, you are my driver of the day.
There we are then. So, to give you the full rundown of the results, as you see here, subject to any penalties and things that need to be handed out, but we have Vincent Nyquist taking not just the race win, but the championship as well. Join them on the podium, fellow Swede Alexander Johansen and Norby in the Ferrari. Then, from fourth down, we have JXN 248, Jerry Van Bussel, Danny Cofield, who takes my driver of the day, Alex Berry, Ali Finn, Momentu, Jeremy Glinner, Elliot Noren, Maceo, Fionn McKee, Kinty, and Dimitri Minich.
And also do notice that Fionn did still steal that fast slap at a 27.8, so a little bit of a consolation prize for him, as nobody else was anywhere near that fast slap. Everybody else was like 2 seconds away from that fast slap, so, slight consolation prize, though. Obviously, that's nothing compared to a championship win when it comes to a prize.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely agree with you. So, there we are then, everybody. That has been your PSGL season, season number 31. Crikey. We've done a fair few of them, and we've got 32 on the horizon as well, of course. I've had great fun. It's been a fantastic time commentating over this division for you all. Whether you are a regular viewer, whether you've dropped in just for today and you've seen the conclusion to the championship, it's been wonderful to have you all along. I want to make thanks as well to our commentators over the course of the season. I've been here for all but one round. We've had, of course, Reese Gregory, our more regular co-commentator as well, who's missed a few rounds of the season, including this evening. But then, of course, Punju has jumped in on. You jumped in for 2 races, didn't you, this season?
Yes, sir, I did, and it's been a heck of a time too. I just went ahead and asked the drivers as well if they wanted to pop in for an interview. But it has been so much fun to jump in here and get to hang out with you in the F5 group. Like, you guys have been so much fun. These races have been absolutely exceptional all the way up until the end, and so I just want to say thank you to all the fans that support us and also all the drivers that give us such good content.
Absolutely. So, if you have enjoyed all of around with us into season 32. I'm sure that it will be exciting nonetheless, and it will all reset. We will be all go once more, and we will maybe get to see some new talent jumping into F5 as well. Whether you join us here or there, we will see you next time. And if you are here and not subscribed to the YouTube channel, then go ahead and do that. Subscribe, like, do all the things, comment, blah-de-blah. My name has been Daniel Gilligan. Thank you very much for watching all season long. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
Well, actually, Dan, we actually have 2 people that want to jump in for an interview. I'm going to go ahead and interview them.
I have jumped the gun. Never mind. Let's get them in here.
we got to give some love to Vincent Nyquist. Vincent Nyquist, our championship winner. Congratulations, my friend. How are you feeling?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty, I don't know what to say. Pretty happy.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'd be pretty stoked too. How did you feel going into this round? Did you feel like you were going to end up winning the championship going into this round, or were you a little bit worried?
Well, I could tell Fionn didn't have much practice, so I was quite confident, but in the last practice sessions I was quite slow, so I had mixed feelings into the race.
Well, it obviously worked out. You know, that little bit of practice obviously ended up with you still getting that win. Why do you feel like Fionn had less pace in this race besides practice? Do you feel like you also had a better setup than him, or was it purely just practice?
I think my setup was a little bit better. I mean, yeah, he didn't have the time to actually like do a good setup or something. I don't know if he had a good setup or something.
Uh,
But yeah,
well, hey, it worked out. Congratulations on your championship win. I'm sure you're probably expecting or maybe hoping to be moved up to a higher tier as well next season. What are your goals for the off season? What are you going to be working on?
faster, obviously.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
It's a good answer. Well, Vincent, I'm going to let you go. Thank you again so much for an amazing season. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next season for season 32.
Yeah, thank you.
See you later.
See you later.
And now we're going to pull in Alexander Johansen. Alexander, how you feeling, my friend?
I'm good. It was an epic race, sweaty. I'll be sitting here with jeans and a long t-shirt. So
Oh, wow. So you're going to have to put those in the clothes washer right now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Man, that's a great way to finish off your season, getting that podium second place. Were you a little gutted to not be able to challenge for the win because of that penalty?
Yeah, I was. I was really trying to not get a penalty. I've not had a problem with it on this track, but at the heat of the moment, it happens. And when I got the penalty, I was settling in to at least get a podium finish, and P2 was more than I expected. So I'm very happy to end the season on a high note.
Yeah, that is definitely a great finish. And I obviously have only been able to guest commentate in here a couple times, but every single time that I've gotten to guest commentate, the 2 times I've seen you just absolutely deliver like nobody's business. So I will say, it's great to see that run of form just continue. Next season 32. I'm not sure if you've already seen the calendar yet, but definitely a shakeup on the tracks. Which track are you most excited to see?
That's a good question. I'm not my calendar of choice. I wouldn't say any of the tracks are really in my favorite, but I'm really happy, looking forward to Bahrain, one of my strongest tracks, and it's gonna be fun to try Portimao as well. Never driven it on this track, so gotta keep the practice up.
Yes, Portimao is what I like to call a roller coaster track. So much undulating of the landscape. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how you and everybody else handles all that crazy elevation change. Now, we've got this off season. What are you going to be practicing in this off season?
I'm probably gonna play FIFA for the off season, and then some days before I'll be practicing my. Well, first of all, my qualifying pace is there, so I only need to the racecraft for sure needs to practice that.
Well, I think it's probably smart to take a little bit of a mental break and chillax, play some FIFA, and not think Formula One for a little bit. So, you've had a great season. I'm sure next season is going to be even better. Maybe a season promotion. Who knows? We'll find out. Or maybe a tier promotion. We'll find out. But until then, Alexander, enjoy your break. Thank you again for the great race, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you guys for commentating.
Of course. See you later.
See you.
Oops. Well, Dan, that is it for our commentary experience. That was an amazing season, and thank you again for letting me join you on this final race.
You're very welcome indeed. And I think you handled the interviews extremely well. Any sort of final, we had a one word for the race. Any final word for the season?
I wish I could have 2 final words for the season because
I'll give you 2. I'll be generous. Go have 2.
I'm gonna say get faster. I'm gonna quote Vincent because that is literally the most Swedish response I've ever heard in my life, and that was awesome that he said that was how he's gonna practice. that was gorgeous. It reminded me of a good old Kimi Räikkönen, very Finnish response. So the Nords just short on words, but not short on punch when it comes to what their words are using. So I'd say next season's gonna be even faster. I'm excited.
Excellent. Well then, take 2 this time, shall we say? And thank you very much for watching, everybody. And this time we're going to be out for realsies, I'm sure. But thank you very much for watching. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega and Grid Rival, proudly supporting PSGL.